first episode of The Real Deal featuring Mr. Deal himself.
What's up?
And myself, Brandon. And basically, we just wanted to start a podcast for you guys to be able to come and hang out with us and go through some of our life experiences that we've been through. So a lot of the topics that we'll cover, current events, relationships, and just overall life in general and the things that we've been through. So without further ado, what's the first topic we want to go ahead and jump into today?
After careful deliberation, we decided that one of the most important things that we should talk about today, first and foremost, is why my voice sounds terrible, by the way.
It'll be all right.
Why do relationships fail? I think obviously with cuffing season coming up, this is a very important thing for us to discuss.
It is, yeah. Cuffing season is right around the corner, so it's very important. And to have a quick conversation on the topic of your voice, this just goes to show you that even if you're not ready for something, you still got to jump into it and go ahead and get it started, right? Bye, dog. So with cuffing season right around the corner, we went to our dear friend, Siri, and asked her some of the main reasons that she thinks relationships fail. And the first thing that she told us, my favorite artificial intelligence, is that relationships fail due to the lack of trust. And you want to talk on that, or you want me to go ahead and dive into it?
I want you to start on that.
You want me to start on that? All right. Excuse me. So I think this is a very important reason that relationships fail, and a very important topic to dive into, is because without trust, and this is with romantic relationships and really any kind of relationships, you cannot continue to grow that relationship. If you don't trust that other person, there's really nothing that you can do. And that usually stems from an individual's own insecurities.
So I'm getting a call right now. I'm so sorry.
Should we answer it? Should we answer it on the line?
We absolutely should not answer.
Should we? It was a catchy little tune. Catchy little tune right there.
I don't even know how to change it. All right,
we'll be all good. But that just goes to show you, like, this is live. We're rolling with the punches. Whatever happens, happens here. And we'll go from there. But yeah, lack of trust usually stems from one's own insecurities with themselves. Unless that person is really giving you a reason to not trust them, like they cheated on you, then yeah, you got to kick that one to the curb. But overall, I think that the lack of trust, if you don't trust somebody, that starts to stem from your own insecurities. And if your significant other is treating you correctly and not cheating on you and doing everything a boyfriend or a girlfriend should do, then you should trust them. And if you don't, and this is a reoccurring thing for you, you got to take a step back and stop hopping into relationships. Take a step back and look at yourself and try and understand, why is it that you are so insecure that you don't trust this person?
Right,
now,
can you give us an example of when you didn't trust somebody? And for what reason? What happened?
So I'm 31 now.
Jeez.
Getting a little old. But I would say definitely in my younger relationships, and I've been in a few. I think I would say at least like 5 to 6 serious relationships. So I feel like I can talk well on this topic because I've had a lot of failed relationships. So I've learned a lot from those. And early on in my college relationships, I wouldn't trust, or I felt like I couldn't give like my significant other all of me because I'd like had my high school girlfriend cheat on me. So
okay.
As soon as that happened, then I'm like, oh, I'll never trust. You know how it is. Like, I was younger, like, oh, all girls are sluts. I'm never going to trust them. And then I brought that immature mindset into a college relationship, and I just never really fully trusted. And then it just really ended poorly, very, very poorly. Ended up, with me getting blocked. So you know how that goes. But it was basically stemmed from my own insecurities of not fully trusting myself that I didn't really trust her. And that's just my personal experience with it. What about you?
So I think that especially for guys, a crucial point for us in relationships is our first one, especially in high school. I think it does a lot of shaping about how we go about things going forward. As immature as it may sound, you got to let stuff go. I get it. But that first high school love can kind of make or break you, how you go. Mm-hmm. So for me, my first relationship, I actually just made a TikTok video about this.
TikTok like that?
Yeah, every now and then.
Let's go ahead. What's the TikTok? Go ahead, shout it out.
Shout out Undecided Deal on TikTok. Come and see me. And also follow the pod on TikTok as well. I talked about where basically the young lady that I was with at the time, we were having issues. The reason why we were having issues, I wasn't allowed to go out. So I grew up as a kid who my parents kept in the house. If it wasn't school, sports, or church, I wasn't there. So she wanted a boyfriend that could go out, and she would tell me about how all the other couples, and obviously we're like in 10th grade, they can go to the movies and they can hang out at each other's houses, and we never get to do any of that. So I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do. So we were at this point where we were breaking up, and obviously I'm 16, so I'm doing things like crying on the phone and stuff like that. So that's embarrassing.
It's okay to cry. Hey, if you're a dude, you can cry. You can cry.
Yeah,
it'll
not
be
like
okay.
this, not over this though.
I'm not going to say that I've done it as an adult, but maybe.
So basically what happened is that as I'm on the phone with her, I'm telling her, obviously, I want to stay together and blah, blah, blah. And she says, okay, well, we can stay together, but if we do, I'll probably end up cheating on you. And also tells me who she would end up cheating on me with if we were to stay together.
I love that for you.
So needless to say, it started then where I'm like, you can't, although I appreciate the honesty, it kind of shapes your mentality about what love is and what women are going to do to you going forward.
Yeah, especially early on. I feel you on that.
Yeah, so that's where it started at for me.
So that's a little rough. I think my high school sweetheart story is pretty tragic. We won't hop into that just yet. But do you still, because that was when you were 16, that was
right.
over 10 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
Do you still carry that mentality into your current relationships?
Really, the point that I think what it did, I don't carry that same mentality, but I think what it did is kind of numb me a little bit to the nonsense. Mm-hmm. So I'm more of it is what it is. So basically, if somebody gonna cheat on you, there's nothing that you can do to stop it. So at this point, I'm like, me doing a lot and crying over it and looking through your phone and being overbearing and being just on you all the time isn't gonna stop you from cheating. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I'm like, look, you have the freedom to do whatever it is you feel. But my thing is always be fair. So if it's not something that you would want me doing, then have the courtesy not to do it. And then obviously if there is something that you do and I find out about that, the question that I'm going to ask you is, how would you feel if I did something like that? And then that's the discussion that we're going to have.
Yeah, I definitely, to touch on that and to actually hop into the next point as well, is that if you're in a relationship, you cannot be the person that's going to be controlling. The more you stop somebody from doing what they want to do, the more they're going to do it anyways. Like, the end of the day, you can only control yourself and your actions. You cannot stop your significant other. We work in the industry, the nightlife industry, during the weekend. Like, you can't stop them from going out and having fun. And, like, there's girls that, like, we've seen it. They do go out and they have fun and they leave by themselves. It happens all the time.
Sometimes they don't. But go ahead.
You're making these guys have trust issues. But they do leave by themselves. Like, and they go out and they have girls' nights out, and they leave perfectly unharmed. Obviously guys are going to hit on them and stuff like that, but you can't be that controlling person, because the more you start to be controlling and trying to control your significant other, the more you're just going to push them away. And at that point, like, you're going to keep repeating that same cycle of not staying in a relationship and end up like me at 31 without a girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? So, But to hop onto the next point of why relationships fail, and you're talking about a little bit as well, is like, you know, don't do anything that like you wouldn't want your partner to do. So the next main reason why relationships fail is the lack of respect that they would have for one another. And I definitely have started learning about this. There's actually a book, I forget the author. It's called Love and Respect. It's like a Christian book. So it basically talks about how males need respect from their significant other, and females need love shown to their significant other. And without that constant cycle of the female respecting the male and the male showing gratitude and love to the female, these cycles of crazy and fights start to happen, like, oh, you don't love me and all that stuff. So I read the book, definitely recommend it. It is a little bit boring, but it has some good tips in it for that. So when it comes to respect, like, what are your thoughts on why relationships fail due to the lack of respect?
I think probably the largest area where respect or lack of respect is demonstrated is during disputes and arguments.
I agree.
I think it's very easy to tell when your partner respects you when they're angry. That's the quickest way to tell. Obviously, there's other ways to tell, but that's the quickest way to tell. Go ahead.
So what are ways, because we both date, we both enjoy the company of Latin women.
Yeah.
And they could be a bit spicy. So what are ways that, you know, there's some things that you can't really take to heart that they can say to you in an argument. So, but like, what are some of the things that show disrespect and some of the things that you're just supposed to be, oh, no, they're just kidding.
So
when it comes to arguments.
So a big thing is that they like to call you out of your name when it really gets down to it. So they'll call you every name in the book, every profane name. They'll talk about your mom, your mother raised this, you know, talk about everything they'll do to your family if you piss them off again.
All right, we're just talking about Latin women, it's not Cubans.
You know, I'm just speaking from experience. But I think that shows a lack of respect. Anytime anybody can call you a certain thing, and then obviously when everything has died down and say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, then why are you saying it? Either you have a lack of self-control or a lack of respect, and oftentimes it's both. And either way, that's going to be a problem in your relationship, especially long-term, because obviously we can only take so much of that, right? Because if we stay with that girl who's, every time we have a dispute, that's what the result is. 5-10 years in, you're going to tell it, stop talking to me like that. And we're going to see what happens.
Let me stop you there. You're talking about 5-10 years in. That was exactly as you're talking. Like, I'm thinking, you keep going through the cycle, which in the book, I think they call it like the crazy cycle or something, to where you keep getting into these arguments because the male doesn't show love and the female doesn't show respect.
Right.
But how do you get out of it? Because you just said it, 5 to 10 years down the road,
right,
you're still going through the same thing. When do you know enough is enough and you got to walk away?
Really, you have to set that boundary early. And I think that the older that we get a lot better at that. Because for me, in my early days when things like that would happen, you kind of take it on the chin. We continue. You think about it. You know, you ain't like it, but you just kind of continue. The older that we get now is that the first instance of something like that, you know, for me now is I say, hey, I understand this may have been our first fight. Hey, I get it. I understand you may have come from a certain place, but I'm not going to talk to you like that. So my request to you is that you don't speak to me like that. And if that is going to be a habit, this isn't something that I'm going to be able to do. And we nip that in the bud early. That's the best way to do it, is to get in front of it and try your best to communicate that early, that you're not going to go for that. Just like she should to you on her things as well.
I definitely see what you're saying. But for those of you that don't, and you just get caught up in the act of it, and you just keep going through the cycle of you feel like she's not respecting you, she feels like you're not loving her the way that she wants to be loved, it is one of the most difficult things to do. Is to walk away from a relationship to where like you can still click with a person, you still love them, but at the end of the day, like you know in your heart, like it's not going to be long term. Mm-hmm. The best way to do it, just like you said, is to set those boundaries with respect of like, hey, this is like, we're not going to do this. This is a boundary here. If it continues to happen, then just remove yourself from that relationship before it gets too crazy. But
now, do you fire back when that happens?
Since we're talking about
in the moment though, how do you handle it? Not after, in the moment.
In the moment, since we're talking about arguments, and this is going to go into the next one, which is going to be about communication. I am terrible with confrontation. I will lash out very, very seldom. And when I lash out, like you can feel it. You know what I'm saying? 97% of the time, I just take it and say, yep, you're right. Because I hate arguing. But learn from my mistakes. Like you have to communicate. And this goes into the third reason is why most relationships fail is the lack of communication. Even if your significant other wants to fight with you every single day, there must be a reason.
There's got to be a reason.
Why can't you communicate back to them? And that whenever a fight happens, I just never. It could have been my upbringing, like watching my mom and like all the terrible men that she dated when I was a little kid and how they treated her, and all the fights that I've seen, you know, the abusive fights that I've seen, the verbal fights that I've seen growing up as a kid, that could be part of it. Not that that's an excuse to not communicate with my significant other. But,
no, but that makes sense, though, right? Because we're all products of our environment. So we've either chosen to adopt what we've seen or we've chosen to oppose it. And that's just how it is.
And yeah, the older I get, the more I start to learn about myself and how I am in relationships. And I'll tell you, I mean, I've had a lot of failed ones, but I've learned a lot of lessons. And I tell you, throughout the most recent one, it was that lack of communication with arguments. And I think you know, that does come from a mix of things. Is, you know, me not liking confrontation and me just being like, yeah, like I love you, you're right, I'm gonna listen to you. Like whatever you say, whatever you're talking about, you're absolutely correct. But then that could also stem from like growing up, seeing my mom and how she was in relationships and how they were physically abusive, verbally abusive. And I guess me, one of them was like with a guy when I was younger, like a person that I really considered like a father. And then I seen that happen, and I think it was kind of like I don't want to see it. You know what I'm saying? I kind of just tried to erase it, like, oh, that didn't really happen. You know, he's still a good guy, but that also could be it. Like there's a lot of childhood traumas that you really got to learn about yourself and really got to understand, like, why are you the problem sometimes? And take self-awareness to understand that I am the problem sometimes.
So this is interesting, right? Because for me, my parents are married, right? So my parents have been married for 35 years next year.
I don't want to say it. We'll talk about that next time.
So for me, seeing one of the things my mom asked me one day, she said, what do you feel like we could have did better as parents? And
that's amazing. Right, I'm getting like chills thinking about that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what that's like.
Now, she gave me an answer that my brother gave, which was, you guys made it look easy because you never argued in front of us. Mm-hmm. So for me, arguing in relationships and yelling at each other, that was unheard of for me. Mm-hmm. I had no idea what something like that even looked like. So my first encounter with it, I'm like, where is this coming from?
What is it?
What the heck is this? Why are you talking to me like this isn't how this usually goes? Now, as I get older, I'm thankful that whatever disputes they had were private because obviously 30 plus years of marriage, you had to argue at least once.
35 next year. That's amazing.
Yeah. So at that point, there's going to be arguments. So I'm thankful that there were private disputes. But obviously, on the other end is that once I started, obviously, I wasn't bringing a bunch of girls home, so there wasn't really a lot of room for them to talk to me about relationships. But at that point, letting me know kind of how they handled those things would have been helpful.
Right.
So I had a better idea because, like I said, even now, I don't yell. Even from the start, I wasn't yelling at nobody. I didn't feel the need to argue with anything. I'm just like, look, we can talk about it or not. It's really up to you. I don't really care. But I'm not about to be doing this with you.
Correct. Yeah. I definitely understand that. I mean, there's been times where I like lose it a little bit, never physically, because that's just I've seen what my mom went through. So I was like, I would never want like a woman to like go through what my mom had to go through, which is crazy. And I think that also like kind of stops me from trying to communicate with my significant other is because like I wouldn't want to put somebody even verbally through what my mom had to go through. So I think that kind of hinders me as well, even though it's important to communicate your feelings effectively. Like if someone has an issue, like you can't do what I do and just be like, yeah, you're right. I agree with you. I love you. Let's cuddle up, snuggle up. You know what I'm saying? Because, eventually those problems are going to be revealed. And that's just how I try to hide them. And I think a lot of it, when I uncover it and like dig deep down, is like a lot of it comes from what I saw my mom go through. And I'm a huge mama's boy, like huge mama's boy. So like my parents weren't together barely ever. You know what I'm saying? Like they were never married, never, barely even boyfriend and girlfriend. So definitely been a mama's boy all my life. So to see that kind of stuff, and then, to go into a relationship, I just don't want to put somebody that I love through what I seen her go through. And I think I did that subconsciously until after the relationship. Then it's like, why were you the problem? You know what I'm saying? Because out of each relationship, like there's a lot you can uncover about yourself.
Right, of course.
You're not always fully the problem. It takes two to tango, but be self-aware. Like you're part of the fuck up. Learn something from it. You know what I mean? So that's my thoughts on that. But definitely, I think trust is definitely, you got to have trust. That's the foundation of it. But communication is so, so, so important. And if you can't do that right, you gotta meditate. You gotta uncover those childhood wounds and childhood traumas and really find out like why it is you act that way. And that's what I've been in the process of doing every single day.
Right. So, the last one that we have on this list, super, super important depending on what side of things you're on here. But reason number 4 why relationships failed, according to Siri, this wasn't us. I want to be clear. According to Siri, was lack of intimacy. Now, obviously, if you're waiting until marriage, this doesn't apply to you. Shout out to you. Now, for everybody else, all you other people out there, lack of intimacy. Obviously, that's something that, depending on who you are, it can be very, very important in a relationship. It's something that can make or break a relationship. But Brandon kind of talked to me about this. What are your thoughts on this?
I was really hoping to hear your thoughts because
okay.
I'll go ahead and talk about it. Typically, from Cleon's perspective, is that guys always feel like they're not having enough sex in the relationship.
Based on studies.
On studies. I don't know. I always feel like I don't need it that much to like be in a relationship, like to have like intimacy. I don't need to have sex every single other day with you or every single day or multiple times a day. I'm not that person. Not that person. So ladies, that's what you're looking for. Sorry, go find somebody else. Just kidding. But I rarely like don't really need it. Like once, twice a week, I'm cool with it.
Right.
I don't see a big issue in only wanting to do it a couple of times a week, but that's just me. Other people have different points of view. I think that there's other ways that you can find intimacy that aren't physical. And when you are with a woman that you want to progress a relationship even further, I think that it is very vital and very important that you do not have physical intimacy with them for a very long time. In a very long time, I mean like minimum 3 months.
Oh.
Push it to 6 if you can.
So you're on the 90-day rule.
As I get older.
Okay.
As I get older. I have been a young, immature male, and we all know how that goes. It doesn't go well because I'm 31 and single. You know what I'm saying? So you have to really build that emotional bond with them first. If you build the physical bond with them first, that's what you're building and basing that relationship off. So there's other ways. I think intimacy is very important, but there's other ways that you can do that aren't physical, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I think obviously intimacy in its essence is closeness. So one of the first things to figure out is, how does your partner feel close to you? So not always is it going to be physical intimacy. Some people do strive off of that, and obviously there's kind of some things to unpack there. Anytime anybody has too high of a drive, it's a problem psychologically. If they have too low of a drive, also an issue psychologically. But lack of intimacy. So for me specifically, I think it's about kind of, like you said, where you start at is super, super important. Because once we get with somebody for the first time during that little honeymoon phase, it's like you're like rabbits every time you guys are together. And depending on who you are, you create an expectation ongoing. So at some point, that's going to die down in your relationship. It's
1,000%.
In most cases, it's not going to keep that way. So if that's what you were expecting, an everyday, multiple times a day thing, you're going to be dissatisfied with your relationship going forward. Once it kind of gets to that year in, 2 years in, whatever the case, especially when you decide to, let's say, move in together, you start having a family and stuff like that, that level of the physical intimacy is going to decrease based on what I've heard.
And that's why it is so important that if you do like see somebody that you like see a lot of potential in to grow and nurture a relationship, it's important that you don't do that right off rip. Is because it's always going to be there. And if you, for example, if like I really like a girl and I start love bombing her, hanging out with her every day, having sex with her every single day, and that's all it is for the first like month, of course she's going to love you. Of course she's going to really, really like you. If you're putting it down, she's going to fall in love with you. But that is not sustainable. That's really not sustainable, because now that's what she's going to expect a relationship is. So don't do that. Hold off. Stay strong, fellas.
Now, this isn't about the girls that you meet at the club. This is about girls that, you know.
This is relationship potential. This is what we're talking about. And, you know, have some self-control for the girls that you meet in the club, man. Chill out on that.
Yeah, you know, I think it's super, super important to understand, like we said, the intention up front. I think, like we said, intimacy itself, figuring out how your partner feels loved. Because I think that's probably, when it comes to long-term relationships, that's why you see people getting divorced after 20, 30, 40 years, is because of the fact that, hey, I don't feel seen, I don't feel heard. All those things are forms of intimacy. So if your partner likes Walgreens cards, they're $5. Go get them.
Gift giving.
You know, if that's their thing, that's a form of intimacy for them. You may not care for it. I don't care for a lot of things. There's a lot of things that your partner's going to care for that you're just like, this means absolutely nothing to me. But if you like it, right, that's how you decide that you feel love, then cool. You know what I'm saying? And
100%.
I think that kind of helps grow the relationship. But obviously, it is going to fail if you don't take the time to get to know those little things.
If you want a relationship to last, keep it in your pants, my dog. Keep it in your pants. Build that emotional connection first.
This is just not the advice I expected from you today.
I'm growing. I'm growing up, man. I'm getting old, mature. You know, I told you how long it's been since I had sex. So you're like, oh, it's surprising. You know what I'm saying? But keep it in your pants, man. Keep it in your pants. Build that emotional bond. Build that emotional relationship with somebody you see potential. If it's just gonna be a one night stand, man, have at it, have fun, do whatever you want to do. Females, I know y'all be doing that too. I work in the club, so I know. I see it all the time.
Come on now.
Shout out, shout out my boy John. But yeah, if it's fun, it's fun. But don't try and turn fun into your future wife.
I found that I'm a lot more interested now in the conversation with whoever it is I'm involved with. I'm a lot more interested in seeing what you have to say, hearing you speak, because I realize sometimes the longer you hear somebody talk, the more you don't like them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why, it's been so long. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I don't want to invest the emotional energy, the transfer of energy that it actually involves. And
right.
it really is a transfer of emotions and a transfer of energy. So you really got to be smart about it.
Yeah, because once you let sex start clouding your judgment, you don't realize that this person maybe has no personality, or you have opposite views on literally everything.
Yeah, get to know the person, man.
It makes sense. I guess.
Get to know them.
Get to know them.
Build.
Yes, if that's what you're into.
Yeah, if that's what you're into. If you're just one of those fuck boys that's at the club every single weekend, or I don't know what to call the girls that's at the club every weekend, looking for that, hey man, go ahead.
There's a whole
Do
list
you.
of names.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about why relationships fail. And if you see potential in somebody, it's not going to work out if you're just fucking them right off rip and you love bombing them and having sex with them every day. But then 8 months down the road, you're only doing it once a week. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? It's completely different. She's going to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I also think it's a bad sign up front anytime you're getting too much of anything. So like you said, the love bombing, or if it's a bunch of sex at the start, because of the fact that what happens is that when those things do die down, so like, let's say, have you ever been in, let's say in your relationship where your partner wanted to have sex and you didn't?
Yeah.
And how did she react to that?
The first time, she wasn't very happy about it. The first time.
What does that mean? What does not very happy mean?
She was upset. Like she felt that like she didn't feel the love. You know what I'm saying? You know how we talk about love and respect? Like she didn't feel like I loved her, or I like thought she was attractive.
Interesting.
Because I didn't want to do it. But I really did. I did love her, and I did find her extremely attractive. Obviously. It was just I just wasn't in the mood to do it. That was all it was. It was simple black and white with me, and it was a lot more than black and white with her. And I just tried to explain. No, it's just like I don't really feel like it. But hindsight, if your partner's in the mood, you should suck it up and get that shit done. You know what I'm saying? If you love them, suck it up.
And it's very
go take that Blue Chew. This is not an ad for Blue Chew, but I've never taken it. But
that's very interesting, right? Because when as a man, right, the stereotype is that we're these sexual deviants who are always horny and always in the mood. So anytime that you don't want to, something must be wrong with the person that's attempting. And that's how they kind of take it as like, what do you mean you're not in the mood? I've told a girl I wasn't in the mood before, and she called me every name in the book. She questioned my sexuality. She questioned my manhood and a bunch of other things of that nature. All because of the fact that I was just like, I'm good. I'm good off that right now. I even watched a video once where this guy was interviewing girls and said, if your man tells you no to sex, what would you do?
Think he's cheating.
The answers were egregious. Some of these girls, like you said, they were saying that he was cheating. They would say that he's gay. Some of the girls were like, oh, I would just pull his pants down. And I'm just
sometimes that's what you got to do. If you're in a relationship and the guy, just do it. Just try it.
It's insane.
No, just means you got to try harder.
That's not what.
Well, I'm talking about like the girl.
Hold on.
That was a message. That was a message to my ex.
Jesus Christ. That's not so. It's just very, very interesting.
That only works one way. That only works for the girl, guys. If she says no, like get the fuck.
It's
no,
still not okay
it
for
is okay.
you people. Either.
It's okay for the female. Yeah, you got to keep. That just means try harder. Females don't get in trouble for doing that kind of stuff, so just try harder, baby.
Yes, in society they do not get in trouble for doing that. However, what we should do is hold them accountable, because no doesn't mean I have a problem with you. If I'm in a relationship with you, I'm spending my time with you every day. I find you attractive. I do like you. Me not wanting to have sex
but based on societal norms,
correct.
You can't hold them accountable. You're in the wrong if you don't want to have sex with your girlfriend. We're not ever going to win this argument. So, ladies, if you're listening and your boyfriend doesn't want to have sex, no just means try harder. Fellas, if your girlfriend doesn't want to have sex, that means she doesn't want to fucking have sex. You can't do it. It's just how it works. I don't make the rules. I don't make the rules. I'm just letting you guys know the rules, man. I don't make them at all.
It is extremely unfortunate that is what we have decided to accept as a societal norm. He's not wrong. It's not okay, but he's not wrong.
Just how it works, man. Just how it works.
Jesus. So yeah, intimacy. Just find another way, all right, to make your partner feel loved. Find a way to make them feel seen and feel heard. Because as long as you have many different avenues to do that, even if you are lacking in one of those areas, you'll be able to pick up in another area. Ideally, hopefully that's kind of how that'll work for you in that aspect.
And speaking of love, as we wrap up here, let's go over, if I can remember them all, the 5 love languages.
Oh, isn't there 7, or is it only 5?
Oh, Jesus Christ, bro. There's only 5.
If
there's 7, that I don't know. But
okay, all right.
Most women already know this. So, fellas, make sure you learn this.
Yeah, there are 5.
I'm kind of good at this kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Chew.
I've been in a lot of failed relationships, so I've learned a lot.
Thomas Edison method.
You know what I'm saying? Fellas, learn about this shit. Number 1, in no particular order, is physical touch. That's my favorite one. Number 2 is acts of service and gifts. That's typically, me personally, is like how I like to show love.
Those are 2 different ones, by the way.
Yeah, acts of service and gift giving. Mm-hmm. Those are 2 different ones. So physical touch, acts of service, gift giving. For whatever reason, that's how I like to show love. Even if my girlfriend doesn't like to receive it that way, that's how I like to give gifts. I like to do some acts of service. For the most part, I guess not all the time.
So, question
but
for
definitely
you,
gift giving.
For the love languages, this is about how you receive love or how you give love?
Both.
Okay.
So everybody has a different love language, and I'm sure you can go on the website, like love language, and take a little quiz to really figure out what yours is. Mm-hmm. But physical touch, acts of service, gift giving, quality time, and what's the 5th one?
Words of affirmation.
And words of affirmation. That is one that I used to like to receive when I was very insecure, because I wanted that reaffirming. Now it's just like, all right, you're gonna do what you want to do. I don't give a shit. But you better give me at least some physical touch. I'm a physical touch guy. But yeah, those are the 5. And the way you want to receive love is 80% of the time going to be very different than the way your significant other wants to receive love. And the way you want to give love will be different than the way your significant other wants to receive it. Like I was saying, for me, I'm a big physical touch person. How I like to give love and show my appreciation for somebody I care about, I like to buy gifts. But if your significant other doesn't give a shit about getting gifts, then it's like you're really not showing them that. Even though you think you are, but you're really not, because they don't accept love that way.
Right.
If that's making sense to you guys. Dig deep into it. There's a book on it, but if you're like me, 31 and single, getting old, you know what I'm saying? You're not married yet. Even if you are married, even if you're in a relationship, do some research on, the 5 love languages, and love your partner even better. Or if you don't have a partner, then find learn about it now, so that way when you do find that person, you can love them and meet them where they're at.
More importantly, learn how you want to be loved. So that way, once you do get into that relationship, you can explain that a little bit more effectively. I think a big issue, like it kind of goes back to that communication portion, is that if you can't tell somebody how you receive love, then they're going to be struggling trying to figure out how to do it. They're going to feel like they're doing a bunch of things to please you and it's just not working. And then they're going to be upset about that. So figure out how you like to be loved so you can tell them that. Make their life a little bit easier, make your life a little bit easier.
Spin bars right there. All right. Looks like we're wrapping up here. You got anything else on this topic that you want to talk about? And we'll do more talks on different parts of relationships, hookup culture, different parts of longevity in relationships, whatever it may be. Have a special guest, female, talking about relationships. That'd be a very, very great conversation for us to have as well. And talking about why guys ain't shit all the time. Because, you know, the ones that be at the club every weekend, it ain't. Get your act together.
Yeah.
But hey, come support us. Come support us.
Absolutely.
And then get your act together.
After that. Yeah. After.
But yeah, anything else that you got on your mind that you want to speak on this topic before we sign off for today?
What I will say is after you listen to this, if your next relationship fails, it's your fault.
I will agree with that, because everything in life that happens to you is your fault. And the sooner you learn to take ownership over your life and your decisions, the better off you're going to be. And ownership, that's going to be that'll be a whole different other topic as well. We're going to get into a little bit of everything, but appreciate you guys tuning in. This has been the very first episode of the Real Deal podcast with Mr. Cleon Deal and myself, Brandon Haley. We look forward to talking to you guys next week. If you have any other tips, ideas, anything, current events that you want us to start speaking on. I know the election's coming up. We're going to get some really, really juicy podcast episodes in talking about the election and who we're voting for or not voting for in the near future. That's actually coming up in like 5 weeks. You know what I'm saying?
Close,
the election's really close. So we'll talk about some of that stuff. The whole point of this is basically for you guys to come and hang out with us and just listen to two regular dudes that, you know, have been through life, you know, been broke, made money, been through a lot of poor relationships, made a lot of poor decisions. Come from two completely different backgrounds. He has a father. I didn't have a father. I do have a dad. I just met him when I was 20. You know, he wasn't around. He went and got milk for like 20 years.
Better late than never, baby.
You know what I'm saying? At least we met him. Shout out to my dad, Dave, up in Oregon. But I do have 3 beautiful sisters that, you know, are in Oregon that he blessed me with. So, you know, I don't really hate him that much. I'm just kidding. But yeah, just a whole bunch of different, that we come from different backgrounds, a whole bunch of different ideas that we have, and we want to sit down and share them with you. So if you guys have any other topics you want us to jump into, let us know. Give us some feedback on this episode. Respond in the comments what you thought, what you want us to talk about, anything like that. We appreciate your love. We appreciate your support. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Absolutely.